Have you ever wondered why certain individuals seem to effortlessly navigate the complex chessboard of life, while others remain perpetually one step behind? What separates those who consistently rise to positions of influence from those who remain trapped in cycles of frustration and defeat? The answer lies not in luck or innate talent, but in a set of cold, uncomfortable truths that most people are unwilling to acknowledge. Has this ever happened to you? You've worked diligently, followed all the conventional wisdom about transparency and openness, only to watch someone else, perhaps less qualified or less hard-working, outmaneuver you through what appeared to be almost mysterious means. This isn't coincidence. It's evidence of a fundamental reality about how power and influence actually operate in our world. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. What I'm about to share with you isn't taught in business schools or leadership seminars. It's a set of principles I call strategic darkness, a particular kind of intelligence forged through adversity, careful observation, and sometimes painful experience. The most successful strategists throughout history have understood that complete transparency, while virtuous in theory, is often catastrophic in practice. They operate with what I call calculated opacity, the deliberate control of what others know about their intentions and capabilities. Think about it. When you reveal your entire playbook to everyone around you, you're essentially surrendering power before you've even begun to act. It's like playing poker with your cards facing outward. You've lost before the game begins. The cold truth is that strategic genius requires the discipline to maintain certain mysteries about yourself and your objectives. Stay with me until the end of this video, because understanding these 7 lessons might completely transform how you navigate your professional and personal landscapes. This isn't about becoming manipulative or dishonest. It's about developing a heightened awareness of human nature and social dynamics that allows you to move through complex hierarchies with remarkable effectiveness. The first principle of strategic genius is deceptively simple, yet profoundly powerful. Observe more than you speak. Those who possess this rare form of intelligence don't just react to their environment, they carefully study it. They listen attentively, notice patterns others miss, and recognize the often substantial gap between what people say and what they actually do. Most importantly, they plan meticulously before taking action, striking only when the moment is perfectly aligned with their objectives. What you're about to discover might surprise you, especially if you've been conditioned to believe that good intentions and transparent communication are always rewarded. The reality is far more complex, and some might say darker, than that comforting narrative suggests. The uncomfortable truth is that we've been sold a dangerous illusion, that complete transparency is always virtuous, that revealing everything about our plans, vulnerabilities, and intentions somehow makes us more authentic or trustworthy. This mindset creates a fundamental misunderstanding about how influence and power actually work. There's a profound difference between honesty and the naive exposure of your vulnerabilities to those who may use them against you. Consider how often we're encouraged to put all our cards on the table in negotiations, relationships, or career moves. This mindset might seem noble, but it creates an immediate power imbalance that rarely works in your favor. The most successful strategists understand that discernment, not deception, is the cornerstone of effective information sharing. This crucial distinction is what separates those who merely participate in the game from those who shape its outcome. The transformation begins when you recognize that certain information has inherent power. Your ideas, plans, and strategic advantages are valuable assets that deserve protection. Just as you wouldn't leave precious valuables unguarded, why would you distribute your most powerful intellectual and strategic resources indiscriminately? This revelation often comes as a shock to those who've been conditioned to believe that holding anything back is somehow dishonest. I experienced this mindset shift personally after a devastating setback early in my career. I'd enthusiastically shared my expansion strategy with someone I considered a mentor, only to find them launching a competing venture using my exact framework 3 months later. That painful lesson wasn't about becoming more suspicious. It was about becoming more discerning about what I shared and with whom. The impact was immediate. My decision-making improved, my strategic positioning strengthened, and paradoxically, my authentic relationships deepened. Behind the scenes of almost every major success story is this principle of calculated opacity. The journey towards strategic genius requires creating a protective boundary around your most valuable assets while still maintaining your authentic core. This isn't about wearing a mask. It's about controlling your narrative in a world eager to define you before you've had the chance to fully develop your vision. The hidden truth is that a certain strategic mystery creates both intrigue and advantage. When people can't immediately categorize or predict your next move, they pay closer attention. They become more invested in understanding you. This psychological principle operates whether you're aware of it or not. Those who master it gain an almost magnetic quality that draws others into their orbit. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this principle of calculated opacity extends beyond mere information control into how you present yourself across different social contexts. The most effective strategists develop what I call an adaptive persona, the ability to authentically connect with diverse audiences while maintaining their core identity and objectives. If you've ever experienced that moment of revelation when you realized someone wasn't being dishonest with you, but simply strategic about what they shared, write strategic clarity in the comments below. This principle of adaptive persona is like a social chameleon superpower, a transformative ability that allows you to shift your communication style to connect more effectively with different personalities. Think about how the most influential people you've encountered seem to speak everyone's language. They're not being fake or manipulative. They've simply mastered the art of presenting their authentic values in ways that resonate with diverse audiences. The mindset shift occurs when you realize that your identity isn't as rigid as you might have been led to believe. There's a fluidity to authentic self-expression that allows you to maintain your core principles while adapting how you communicate them. This revelation often comes as a breakthrough moment for those who previously believed they had to choose between being true to themselves and successfully navigating complex social landscapes. If you're ready to develop the strategic intelligence most people never acquire, hit the subscribe button now. I share these rare insights that transform how you navigate both business and life, giving you an edge others simply don't possess. Behind the scenes of every powerful connection is this fundamental understanding. You're not compromising who you are by adjusting how you present yourself. You're actually enhancing your ability to build bridges rather than walls. Consider how you naturally speak differently with your grandparents versus your closest friends. That's adaptive persona in action, though most people do this unconsciously and inconsistently. The journey toward mastering this approach begins with self-awareness. What are your uncompromisable values? Which aspects of your communication style are flexible? When you gain clarity on these questions, you discover remarkable freedom in your interactions. The impact ripples through every relationship, creating pathways for influence that previously seemed impossible. Perhaps the most powerful dimension of this social intelligence is the practice of emotional detachment. This is widely misunderstood. Detachment doesn't mean becoming cold or uncaring. Quite the opposite. It means caring deeply about outcomes while releasing the paralyzing fear of loss that makes you vulnerable to manipulation. When you're genuinely detached, your decisions come from a place of clarity, rather than fear. Consider how many people remain trapped in toxic relationships or unfulfilling careers because they fear the unknown. That attachment to what's familiar, even when it's harmful, creates the perfect conditions for manipulation. The hidden truth is that someone who knows what you're afraid to lose has tremendous power over you. True detachment liberates you from this vulnerability while enhancing your ability to form authentic connections. The revelation that transforms relationships is understanding that detachment is actually the highest form of emotional intelligence. It allows you to value people and experiences deeply while maintaining the inner knowing that you'll be okay regardless of external circumstances. This creates a remarkable shift in how others perceive and interact with you. They sense a gravity in your presence that draws them in rather than pushes them away. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how these principles of adaptive communication and emotional detachment combine to create what I call silent leverage, perhaps one of the most powerful yet least discussed aspects of strategic influence. This subtle force operates beneath the surface of conversations, creating impact without triggering the resistance that direct persuasion often encounters. If you've noticed yourself naturally adjusting your communication style in different contexts and want to develop this skill more deliberately, write adaptive authenticity in the comments section. Silent leverage emerges naturally when you've mastered emotional intelligence in this profound way. What appears as detachment to the uninitiated is actually a deeper form of engagement, one that values connection without becoming imprisoned by it. This mindset transformation allows you to maintain presence in every interaction without being consumed by the desperate need for specific outcomes. The revelation is that this very freedom from attachment creates a magnetic quality that draws others toward you rather than pushing them away. The most socially intelligent individuals have discovered what I call strategic authenticity, the delicate balance between unwavering core values and flexible presentation. This isn't contradiction, it's evolution. Your authentic self contains multitudes, different aspects that can emerge in different contexts while maintaining complete integrity. When you embrace this truth, you develop a social fluency that feels almost supernatural to those who remain rigidly committed to a single expression of themselves. The journey toward this kind of emotional intelligence requires courage, the willingness to examine which parts of your identity are truly essential and which are merely habitual. Behind the scenes of every powerful relationship is this fundamental understanding. Authenticity isn't about consistency of behavior, it's about alignment with core values. This distinction creates the space for remarkable adaptability without compromising your integrity. Now, as we move deeper into these cold lessons, we discover perhaps the most subtle yet powerful principle: silent leverage. This concept remains largely undiscussed in conventional success literature, yet it forms the foundation of truly masterful influence. Silent leverage isn't about manipulation or control. It's about understanding the hidden currents that flow beneath every human interaction. Consider the last time you felt completely understood by someone. That experience created an immediate bond, didn't it? That's silent leverage at work. By observing and recognizing what truly matters to others, their values, fears, and aspirations, you create an invisible bridge of influence. This bridge doesn't require you to raise your voice or make demands. It exists in the space between careful observation and thoughtful response. The impact of mastering this principle is profound. When you develop the capacity to recognize these unspoken dynamics, you gain access to a dimension of communication most people never consciously perceive. You begin to notice patterns in how people make decisions, what motivates them beyond their stated reasons, and the gaps between what they say and what they truly desire. This awareness isn't about exploiting weaknesses, it's about creating genuine connections that serve everyone involved. The transformation occurs when you shift from reactive communication to responsive presence. Most people enter conversations waiting for their turn to speak, already formulating responses before others have finished expressing themselves. The strategic genius understands that power lies in genuine attention, in the willingness to fully absorb what others are communicating, both verbally and non-verbally. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how silent leverage creates what psychologists call the echo effect, a remarkable phenomenon where your ability to mirror someone's internal state creates a connection that bypasses typical resistance. This isn't about mimicry or manipulation, it's about developing the capacity to truly understand others' core needs and concerns, even when they haven't fully articulated them themselves. If you've ever experienced that moment when someone truly understood what you were trying to communicate, perhaps even better than you could express it yourself, write deep listening in the comments below. This psychological echo is far more nuanced than simply repeating what someone says. It's about developing the rare ability to reflect back what others are feeling, but perhaps haven't fully articulated themselves. When you master this dimension of communication, you create connections that bypass typical resistance, because people experience being truly seen and understood, perhaps for the first time. This creates an immediate bond that transcends logical arguments or persuasive techniques. I witnessed this transformation firsthand during a particularly tense business negotiation. Instead of countering the other party's demands directly, I took the time to listen deeply enough to understand the fears driving their position. The revelation came when I realized they weren't actually concerned about the financial terms. They were worried about losing control of the project's direction. When I addressed this underlying concern, rather than the dollar figures they mentioned, the energy in the room shifted immediately. The negotiation wasn't about winning anymore. It became about solving a mutual problem. The hidden truth behind influential communication is that most resistance comes from people feeling unheard or misunderstood. When you demonstrate genuine comprehension of someone's core concerns, not just their stated positions, you create an opening for authentic connection that no amount of persuasion could achieve. This approach transforms confrontation into collaboration without requiring either party to surrender their essential interests. What makes this approach so powerful is its subtlety. Most people are conditioned to expect direct pressure or obvious persuasion attempts in negotiations, which naturally triggers defensive responses. Silent leverage sidesteps this defensive reaction entirely. It's like water flowing around a stone rather than trying to move it by force. The path of least resistance often leads to the most powerful outcomes. Behind the scenes of every meaningful human connection is this dance of understanding and adaptation. The most effective communicators don't try to overpower resistance. They make it unnecessary by addressing the underlying needs that create it in the first place. This requires patience and genuine curiosity about what drives others' perspectives, but the dividends it pays in influence and connection are immeasurable. The journey toward mastering silent leverage isn't about adding new techniques to your communication arsenal. It's about developing a deeper awareness of what's already happening beneath the surface of every human interaction. When you become attuned to these undercurrents, you gain access to a level of influence that most people never realize exists. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how these principles intersect with what might be called ambiguous morality, the pragmatic wisdom required to navigate complex situations where rigid moral frameworks often fail. This dimension of strategic intelligence acknowledges the messy reality we actually inhabit, rather than clinging to idealistic simplicity. It's about optimizing for meaningful outcomes, rather than symbolic victories. If you've ever noticed yourself naturally tuning into someone's unspoken concerns during a conversation and adjusting your approach accordingly, write "intuitive connection" in the comments. The revelation that transforms how we think about power is recognizing that influence rarely correlates with formal titles or positional authority. Look closely at any organization, and you'll notice that some of the most impactful individuals aren't necessarily at the top of the hierarchy. They're the ones who have developed such deep understanding of others that their mere presence shifts the direction and energy of conversations. This insight liberates you from the common misconception that you need official authority to create meaningful change. These individuals operate with a particular kind of awareness. They perceive the currents that flow beneath surface-level interactions. While most people focus exclusively on what's being said explicitly, strategic geniuses attend to the unspoken dynamics, the subtle shifts in energy, the micro-expressions that reveal true intentions. When you develop this level of perception, you gain access to a dimension of communication that most never consciously recognize. The transformation that occurs when you bring consciousness to these patterns is remarkable. Conversations become less exhausting because you're no longer fighting against invisible resistance. Results materialize more naturally because you're working with the underlying psychology rather than against it. The journey toward this heightened awareness isn't about accumulating manipulative tactics. It's about developing genuine curiosity about human nature and the hidden forces that drive behavior. This brings us to perhaps the most challenging aspect of strategic intelligence: embracing ambiguous morality. Our educational systems and cultural narratives often condition us to seek absolute moral clarity, clear distinctions between right and wrong, good and bad. Yet the paradox that strategic geniuses understand is that rigid moral frameworks frequently lead to worse outcomes in complex situations than approaches that acknowledge nuance and ambiguity. Join our community of strategic thinkers by subscribing to this channel. Together, we're exploring the hidden principles that separate those who merely participate in life from those who actively shape its outcomes. To be clear, this isn't moral relativism or an abandonment of principles. It's pragmatic wisdom that recognizes the messy reality we actually inhabit rather than clinging to idealistic simplicity. Consider how even in the most harmonious natural ecosystems, predators hunt prey, parasites exploit hosts, and competition drives evolution. The natural world isn't concerned with our human notions of fairness or justice. It optimizes for survival, adaptation, and systemic balance. The mindset shift required here is substantial. It means moving from binary thinking to systems thinking, from moral absolutism to contextual wisdom. Behind the scenes of every major leadership success is this fundamental understanding. Sometimes the path to the greatest good requires accepting trade-offs that feel morally ambiguous. This principle extends perfectly into how strategic geniuses share information with others. The hidden truth is that the most effective leaders aren't necessarily those with the clearest moral convictions, but those who can navigate complexity without becoming paralyzed by it. They maintain core principles while recognizing that application requires wisdom, not just rigid adherence to rules. This capacity for nuanced thinking creates a decisiveness that purely idealistic approaches often lack. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how controlled exposure of information operates as an extension of this pragmatic wisdom. Just as nature reveals its lessons gradually rather than all at once, strategic geniuses understand that timing and context matter enormously in how information is shared and received. If you've ever found yourself moving beyond black and white thinking to embrace the complexity of real-world decisions, write pragmatic wisdom in the comments. Looking to nature provides us with powerful insights about pragmatic optimization. Study any ecosystem, even the most balanced ones, and you'll notice that harmony doesn't mean absence of conflict or competition. Predators hunt prey, species compete for resources, and parasites exploit hosts. Yet from this apparent brutality emerges a remarkable balance and resilience. Nature optimizes for what works, not what aligns with human ideals of fairness or justice. The revelation here is that effective systems often incorporate elements that, viewed in isolation, might seem harsh or uncomfortable. This observation challenges us to examine our own decision frameworks. We're conditioned to seek moral purity in our choices, but the hidden truth is that sometimes the path to the greatest good requires navigating trade-offs that feel morally ambiguous. This isn't about abandoning principles. It's about recognizing that rigid adherence to idealistic frameworks can sometimes create worse outcomes than approaches that acknowledge complexity. Consider how often we've witnessed well-intentioned initiatives fail because their architects refuse to engage with messy realities. The most effective leaders understand that wisdom often lies in the space between competing values, not in blind devotion to a single principle. This mindset transformation doesn't come easily. It requires intellectual honesty and the courage to face criticism from those who prefer moral simplicity over effective action. Behind the scenes of every significant achievement is this fundamental understanding. Optimization rarely follows a straight line. It zigzags through ambiguity, makes calculated compromises, and prioritizes ultimate impact over symbolic purity. This principle extends naturally into how information is shared with others. The journey toward mastery in any domain follows the pattern of controlled exposure. A master chef doesn't simply hand over their complete recipe book to an apprentice on day one. They gradually reveal techniques as the student becomes ready to receive them. This deliberate unfolding creates a journey of discovery that's far more valuable than immediate, overwhelming disclosure. It's not about hoarding knowledge, it's about responsible curation of the learning experience. I've witnessed this transformation firsthand in both personal relationships and professional settings. When we dump all information at once, people often become defensive or overwhelmed. But when we strategically pace our revelations, allowing others to digest and integrate each piece, the impact is profoundly different. They come to their own realizations, which are always more powerful than conclusions handed to them. The psychological insight here reveals why this approach works so effectively. The mind doesn't assimilate all information equally. It needs context, preparation, and sometimes protection from its own tendency to reject what doesn't fit existing beliefs. By controlling the timing and sequence of information sharing, you're not manipulating others, you're respecting the natural process of understanding and integration. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how these principles of controlled exposure and ambiguous morality intersect with our next critical lesson: outcome obsession. This mindset shift fundamentally transforms how strategic geniuses navigate challenges, moving them beyond the exhausting cycle of ego-driven debates into a realm where only results matter. If you've recognized the value of carefully timing when and how you share important information rather than dumping everything at once, write strategic timing in the comments. The psychological dynamics at play when sharing information reveal a fascinating truth about human nature. Our minds instinctively resist ideas that arrive too suddenly or in overwhelming volume. I've witnessed remarkable transformations in negotiation settings when adopting strategic pacing rather than information dumping. When you gradually reveal your perspective, allowing others space to process and integrate each piece, they often arrive at your desired conclusion as if it were their own discovery. This journey of guided realization creates both deeper understanding and stronger commitment than any attempt at direct persuasion. Think about your own experience learning something complex. The revelations that stayed with you weren't those forced upon you. They were the insights you felt you discovered yourself, even if someone else skillfully led you to that moment of clarity. This isn't manipulation when done with integrity. It's respecting the natural cognitive processes through which humans integrate new information. It's curating an experience rather than overwhelming with raw data. Behind the scenes of nearly every successful negotiation or persuasive interaction is this principle of controlled exposure. The masterful communicator understands that information lands differently depending on context, timing, and the receiver's readiness. They create a sequence of understanding that builds naturally toward their objective rather than trying to force immediate comprehension of their entire perspective. This mindset brings us directly to perhaps the most transformative lesson: outcome obsession. When you fully embrace this approach, something remarkable happens to how you navigate challenges. Instead of getting entangled in the exhausting web of who's right or wrong, your energy shifts entirely toward what actually produces results. This liberation from ego-driven debates creates an almost unfair advantage in every arena you enter. Consider how many times you found yourself in heated discussions where proving your point became more important than solving the actual problem at hand. We've all been there. The argument intensifies, positions harden, and suddenly the original objective is forgotten in the struggle to be right. The revelation comes when you realize that while you may have won the argument, you lost precious time and energy that could have moved you closer to your desired outcome. This journey toward outcome obsession requires a profound shift in how you approach your plans and methods. The hidden truth that strategic geniuses understand intuitively is that plans themselves have no inherent value. They're simply temporary roadmaps, not sacred texts. When you detach from specific methods and stay committed only to the destination, you discover an unexpected flexibility that propels you forward, while others remain stuck defending approaches that clearly aren't working. I've witnessed this mindset difference behind the scenes with entrepreneurs who appeared lucky to outside observers. What looked like luck was actually their willingness to abandon perfectly good strategies the moment something more effective emerged. They weren't married to their original ideas. They were devoted exclusively to creating impact. Their journey wasn't about consistency or saving face. It was about achieving meaningful results by whatever ethical path proved most effective. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how outcome obsession transforms not just business decisions, but personal relationships as well. When you apply this principle beyond professional contexts, you begin to see patterns emerge that completely change how you navigate complex social dynamics and emotional challenges. If you've ever found yourself caught in an argument where winning became more important than the actual issue at hand, write outcomes over ego in the comments. This shift in perspective completely transforms how we approach conflict and problem solving. Think about your most recent disagreement, whether personal or professional. How much of your energy was consumed by the need to prove your perspective correct rather than actually resolving the underlying issue? This common trap drains our resources and often leaves the core problem untouched. The strategic genius understands that being right is vastly overrated compared to being effective. The mindset transformation begins when you realize that your attachment to specific methods and approaches is often the very thing blocking your progress. Behind the scenes of nearly every breakthrough is this fundamental revelation. Plans are meant to serve outcomes, not the other way around. They're tools, not sacred texts. The moment you elevate a particular approach above the result you're seeking, you've created an invisible barrier to your own success. I experienced this revelation personally during a high-stakes business expansion that wasn't progressing despite a meticulously crafted strategy. The breakthrough came when I forced myself to ask a simple but uncomfortable question. Am I more committed to this specific plan or to the outcome it was designed to achieve? That moment of clarity allowed me to abandon months of work in favor of a completely different approach that ultimately succeeded. Brilliantly, the journey toward that success required the courage to detach from the sunk cost of my original strategy. What's fascinating is how this principle operates in the lives of those who seem inexplicably lucky in their endeavors. When you study them closely, you'll notice they don't experience fewer failures than others. They simply pivot more quickly when something isn't working. What appears as good fortune to outside observers is actually their remarkable willingness to abandon perfectly good plans the moment a more efficient path emerges. They aren't married to their original ideas or concerned with consistency. They're devoted exclusively to impact. This outcome obsession doesn't come naturally in a world that often rewards consistency over adaptation. We're taught from childhood to stick to the plan and finish what you start. While persistence certainly matters, being rigidly committed to a particular approach can blind you to more efficient paths forward. The most effective strategists maintain unwavering commitment to outcomes while remaining completely fluid about methods. The impact of this mindset extends far beyond professional contexts. In relationships, it transforms conflicts from battles about who's right to collaborative explorations of what actually creates harmony. In personal development, it shifts focus from adhering to specific programs to discovering what genuinely creates growth for your unique circumstances. The hidden truth is that outcome obsession simplifies decision-making by providing a single clear criterion. Does this move me closer to my desired result? Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this principle connects with controlled exposure, creating a powerful synergy that strategic geniuses use to maintain focus while navigating complex social environments. When you combine outcome obsession with selective information sharing, you develop a presence that naturally commands respect without demanding attention. If you've ever abandoned a plan that wasn't working, even after investing significant time and energy in it, and felt the liberation of focusing purely on results rather than methods, write adaptive commitment in the comments. The distinction between unwavering persistence and stubborn inflexibility represents a critical turning point in the development of strategic intelligence. While conventional wisdom celebrates those who never give up, the more nuanced truth is that strategic geniuses maintain absolute commitment to their destinations while remaining completely adaptable about the paths they take to get there. This balance creates a powerful momentum that rigid approaches simply cannot match. Think about the evolution of any significant innovation or achievement. The journey almost never follows the original plan. What begins as one vision often transforms multiple times before reaching its final form. The revelation is that these pivots aren't failures. They're the very essence of the creative process. Each adjustment represents a refinement, a response to new information that brings you closer to an optimal outcome. The transformation happens when you stop seeing plan changes as admissions of error and start recognizing them as evidence of intelligent adaptation. This mindset creates a natural bridge to our next principle, controlled exposure. The most captivating individuals understand that their personal narrative isn't something to be shared indiscriminately. It's a powerful asset to be revealed strategically. This isn't about deception or manipulation. It's about recognizing that not every thought, opinion, or life detail needs to be broadcast to the world. When you practice selective revelation, you create an element of intrigue that naturally draws people toward you. Consider the most magnetic people you've encountered. They likely shared enough to create genuine connection while maintaining certain boundaries that preserved their mystique. This balance creates a psychological pull. Humans are naturally curious creatures drawn to puzzles we haven't completely solved. In a world of oversharing, those who maintain strategic mystery stand out immediately. The journey toward mastering this approach begins with self-awareness. What aspects of yourself create meaningful connections when shared? Which parts of your story are better revealed gradually as relationships deepen? The hidden truth is that controlling your narrative isn't about being secretive. It's about creating a journey of discovery for others that honors the natural progression of human connection. I noticed this principle at work after observing a particularly influential leader in my industry. While others in similar positions overwhelmed new contacts with their accomplishments and opinions, this person shared information with remarkable intentionality. Initial interactions focused entirely on establishing genuine rapport. Only as relationships developed did they gradually reveal their expertise and perspectives. The impact was profound. People felt drawn to their presence rather than impressed by their credentials. Behind the scenes of nearly every magnetic personality is this careful calibration between openness and mystery. They understand that human connection depends on authenticity, but human interest thrives on curiosity. By revealing enough to be relatable while maintaining certain boundaries, they create a presence that others find almost magnetically attractive. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how strategic revelation intersects with the psychology of influence. When you understand the natural human tendency to value what we work for, including relationships and information, you gain access to powerful dynamics that transform how others perceive and respond to you. If you've ever noticed yourself drawn to someone precisely because they didn't immediately reveal everything about themselves, creating a sense of curiosity that kept you engaged, write strategic mystique in the comments. This psychological principle operates whether we recognize it or not. Mystery creates value in human perception. In our hyper-connected world, where oversharing has become the default, strategic restraint immediately signals both confidence and depth. Consider how quickly we lose interest in those who reveal everything about themselves in the first interaction. There's no journey of discovery, no space for curiosity to develop. The transformation in how others respond to you when you practice controlled disclosure is remarkable. They lean in rather than pull back. The hidden truth behind magnetic personalities isn't that they possess more interesting qualities than others. It's that they understand the power of pacing revelations. They create a narrative arc that keeps others engaged, revealing new dimensions of themselves as relationships develop. This approach respects the natural rhythm of human connection while creating a presence that others find compelling. This principle of strategic revelation connects directly to another crucial insight: the widespread activity illusion that traps so many in cycles of busyness without productivity. Most people fill their days with endless tasks, meetings, and emails, mistaking motion for progress. They become addicted to the sensation of being busy rather than the reality of being effective. Behind the scenes of every strategic genius is a ruthless prioritization that focuses exclusively on what drives actual outcomes. I discovered this distinction the hard way after a particularly exhausting quarter where my team and I had worked relentlessly, yet achieved surprisingly little of substance. The revelation came during a brutally honest review where we tracked every hour spent against measurable results. We discovered that nearly 70% of our activities had created no meaningful impact. This journey toward outcome-based focus completely transformed our approach, cutting our working hours while doubling our results. The psychological insight here reveals why this pattern is so difficult to break. We're naturally drawn to activities that provide the immediate sensation of accomplishment rather than those that genuinely advance our long-term goals. Checking off simple tasks delivers a quick dopamine hit that feels like progress, even when those tasks contribute nothing to our most important objectives. The mindset shift required is substantial, moving from "what can I complete today" to "what can I advance today that actually matters." This transformation in thinking separates strategic geniuses from those perpetually caught in the hamster wheel of busyness. They recognize that time and attention are their scarcest resources, and they protect these assets with remarkable discipline. They're willing to appear less busy while producing more substantial results. This often creates a fascinating paradox. Those accomplishing the most significant work frequently appear to be doing less on a day-to-day basis. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how these principles of controlled exposure and outcome focus combine with psychological mastery, the advanced understanding of human dynamics that allows strategic geniuses to create profound connections while navigating complex social environments. This dimension of intelligence operates beneath the surface of interactions, creating impact without triggering the resistance that more direct approaches often encounter. If you've ever caught yourself being busy all day but realized you made no real progress on what truly matters, write "productivity illusion" in the comments. At the heart of psychological mastery lies what I call the echo effect, a profound understanding that most human communication operates far beneath the surface of words. When someone discusses a problem or challenge, they rarely seek advice or solutions, at least not initially. What they're truly seeking is validation, to feel understood at a level deeper than language. The strategic genius recognizes this fundamental truth and responds accordingly, focusing on the emotional undercurrent rather than rushing to provide answers. This approach creates a remarkable transformation in how connections form. By mirroring back someone's emotions while subtly guiding the conversation, you create a bridge of authentic understanding that makes them receptive to your perspective. I witnessed this principle's power during a particularly tense negotiation where the opposing party was clearly agitated about what they perceived as unreasonable terms. Rather than defending our position, I simply acknowledged their frustration and reflected back their concern about being treated fairly. The shift in energy was immediate and palpable. A door opened that logical arguments alone could never have unlocked. The revelation here challenges conventional wisdom about persuasion. Most people believe influence comes from presenting compelling arguments or overwhelming evidence. The hidden truth is that humans rarely change their minds based on facts alone. The most effective communicators understand that emotions form the foundation upon which all reasoning is built. They focus first on creating emotional alignment before introducing logical elements, creating a path of minimal resistance toward their objectives. Behind the scenes of every meaningful transformation, whether in business, relationships, or personal development, is this fundamental understanding. Humans make decisions based on emotion first, then justify those decisions with logic afterward. Psychological research has confirmed this pattern repeatedly, yet most people continue to approach persuasion backward, leading with facts and figures while ignoring the emotional landscape. The mindset shift required here is substantial, moving from "how do I convince them" to "how do I connect with what they already believe and value." This journey towards psychological mastery requires navigating the delicate balance between ethics and effectiveness. Ambiguous morality isn't about abandoning principles. It's recognizing that rigid frameworks sometimes create more harm than good in complex human scenarios. Effective persuaders operate in the nuanced territory where intention meets impact, making calculated decisions that honor both their values and the practical realities of human psychology. I experienced this balancing act personally when helping a brilliant but socially anxious colleague prepare for a critical presentation. The conventional advice would have been complete transparency. Just tell them you're nervous. Yet I recognized this would undermine both his confidence and his audience's perception. Instead, we reframed his experience from nervousness to enthusiasm about sharing important findings, a subtle shift that honored both authenticity and effectiveness. The impact was transformative. His presentation succeeded brilliantly while preserving his sense of integrity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how these principles of psychological mastery combine with strategic timing to create what I call invisible influence, the remarkable ability to shape outcomes without triggering the resistance that direct control attempts inevitably create. This dimension of strategic intelligence operates like gravity rather than force, pulling others toward your perspective through natural alignment rather than pressure. If you've ever noticed that your most meaningful connections formed when you focused on truly understanding someone rather than trying to be understood yourself, write "connection before correction" in the comments. This shift in perspective, from attempting to convince others to finding alignment with their existing beliefs, represents a fundamental transformation in how strategic geniuses approach influence. Social engineers call this technique pacing and leading, first matching someone's current reality before gently guiding them elsewhere. The approach feels like understanding rather than persuasion because, at its core, that's exactly what it is. You're meeting people where they already stand before inviting them to explore new territory alongside you. The journey toward this mindset requires exceptional patience and genuine curiosity about others. Perspectives. Most people rush to correct what they perceive as errors in thinking, immediately triggering defensive responses. The revelation comes when you recognize that resistance isn't something to overcome. It's a sign you've skipped the crucial alignment phase. This hidden truth transforms contentious conversations into collaborative explorations. What makes this approach particularly powerful is how it intersects with the art of timing. Strategic geniuses understand that when information is shared matters just as much as what is shared. When you strategically time your revelations, you're essentially choreographing how others perceive both you and your ideas. This isn't manipulation, it's respect for the natural cognitive processes through which humans integrate new perspectives. Consider how the most compelling stories unfold, not by revealing everything at once, but through carefully paced discoveries that maintain engagement. The same principle applies to how you present your thoughts, proposals, and even your personal narrative. This controlled exposure creates an intriguing space where curiosity naturally thrives. Behind the scenes of every influential relationship is this dance of revelation and restraint, giving enough to create connection while preserving enough mystery to maintain interest. The mindset transformation occurs when you begin viewing information as valuable currency to be spent wisely at precisely the right moments. Just as a master investor doesn't deploy all their capital at once, Strategic geniuses don't exhaust their informational resources in single interactions. They create a journey of discovery that builds deeper connections than immediate transparency ever could. This approach honors the way human minds naturally work. We value and remember what we discover through a process more than what's simply handed to us. I experienced this principle firsthand during a high-stakes negotiation where the temptation was strong to immediately counter with all our supporting evidence. Instead, we patiently revealed our position piece by piece, allowing the other party to absorb and integrate each element before introducing the next. The impact was remarkable. What began as opposition gradually transformed into collaboration as they felt themselves arriving at conclusions alongside us rather than having our perspective forced upon them. Through all these complex social dynamics, outcome focus serves as your essential compass. When you know precisely what result you're aiming for, you can eliminate countless distractions that might otherwise seem important. This clarity transforms not just business decisions, but every interaction by providing a single criterion against which to evaluate each move. Does this bring me closer to my desired outcome? The hidden truth is that most social friction comes from unclear or competing objectives rather than genuine conflicts of interest. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how these 7 cold lessons integrate to create what might be called strategic presence, a particular quality that immediately distinguishes those who have mastered these principles from those still operating with conventional approaches. This presence manifests as a quiet confidence that naturally draws others into your orbit without obvious effort or manipulation. If you've noticed yourself becoming more effective in conversations when you first seek to understand others' positions, before introducing your own perspectives, write alignment before influence in the comments. These 7 cold lessons represent more than just tactical advantages. They form a comprehensive framework for navigating a world that rarely operates according to the idealistic principles we're taught. When integrated fully into your mindset and behavior, they transform not just what you achieve, but who you become in the process. The strategic genius doesn't simply apply these concepts situationally. They embody them as a natural extension of their authentic self. I've shared these insights today because I've witnessed firsthand how transformative they can be for those willing to embrace uncomfortable truths. The journey towards strategic mastery isn't about manipulating others. It's about developing a heightened awareness of human nature and social dynamics that allows you to create meaningful impact in every arena you enter. If you've found value in these principles, I'd genuinely appreciate you taking a moment to hit the like button. It helps others discover this conversation and signals to me that these deeper explorations of strategic intelligence resonate with you. And if you're interested in continuing this journey, subscribing to the channel ensures you'll have access to our ongoing exploration of these concepts and their practical applications. For those who've made it all the way through this discussion, I'm curious, which of these principles struck you as most immediately applicable to your current situation? Drop "Strategic Awakening" in the comments, along with the lesson that resonated most deeply with you. I personally read every comment and find tremendous value in understanding which aspects of strategic intelligence people connect with most powerfully. There's a video right here that expands on how these principles can be applied during particularly challenging negotiations and high-pressure scenarios. Click and continue with me over there to deepen your understanding of how strategic intelligence operates when the stakes are highest and conventional approaches typically fail.